So, getting a compliment from someone to me is like getting 5 big boos. Let me hear you say it. You guys weren't supposed to actually say it. The downside of loving attention meant I became dense as to whether a comment I got was a true compliment or a little stab in the back. As a matter of fact, there's a moment in my life I still remember clear as day. My parents had all gone to church and I decided to follow along with them. Discovering that church wasn't really in session, looking clueless in an empty parking lot, it was then that a lady came up to me. She started asking me questions about where I go to school and what I wanted to do in the future. Now, just to refresh your memory, I am a sucker for attention, so I thought it necessary to brag about myself, just a bit. I told her about how I wanted to major in political science, and most importantly, that I wanted to go to Harvard, which clearly isn't the case anymore. Go Leopards! Her response was not what I had been expecting. It had already been a little weird because she couldn't stop touching my hair and caressing my hands, talking about how exotic I was. But after hearing more about me, she said, I think it's incredible that there are people in this world who look like you, who actually want to do something for themselves in life. Yikes! The moment I got back in my car, I immediately called my friend. And when I talked about it, it was funny. But when I contemplated it further, I realized that this lady's simple comments were creating a much larger wound than I would have anticipated. I believe that the worst thing you could say to someone was outright hateful and obvious. You know, the kind of thing that can make everyone in a room gasp in shock. But I've learned through personal experience and more awkward interactions than I can count that some of the most harmful comments don't shout. They're a whisper. They're subtle and unseen. Microaggressions are what you would call them, and these tiny little needles can hurt a lot when you have too many being thrown at you. So, today, let's get our microscopes and see how these tiny little needles plant seeds of self-discrimination in people. Then, we'll see how much of a sting these needles really have. And then finally, we'll determine the best way to extract these needles from our everyday lives. After looking through this microscope, maybe you'll be able to understand how big of an impact the little things have. Now, before we put on our lab coats and take a closer look, we first have to understand what we're examining. Let's break it down. According to Dr. Darrell Sue, a psychologist and leading researcher from the American Psychological Association, microaggressions are small, everyday comments or actions that reveal underlying biases or stereotypes, even better described as brief and commonplace indignities that can be intentional or unintentional. And that's the tricky part. They're often unintentional. The person delivering the microaggression doesn't always realizing they're causing harm. But intention doesn't negate impact. Imagine if someone was stepping on your foot over and over again. Sure, they might not mean to hurt you, but eventually you're going to limp. Now, if it's me and you're stepping on my foot constantly, I promise you I'm going to start seeing red and crash out, so please don't play with me. I'm just kidding. Violence is never the answer. What is the answer is knowing where these microaggressions are coming from. Microaggressions don't just pop up out of thin air, because even though they're small, they're the byproduct of unconscious biases that societal norms have been cultivating for centuries. Now, if you watched my TED Talk from last year, you're a little ahead, and you already know that unconscious biases are like weeds you pull out from your garden. You didn't even realize they were growing, and they sprout from the cultural messages we absorb. For instance, let's talk about the model minority myth, a seemingly positive stereotype that a specific demographic, like Asian Americans, are naturally more intelligent or hardworking. Though it might sound complimentary at first, a 2017 study in Nature Human Behavior found that this is rooted in a history of pitting minority groups against each other and erasing individual struggles within those communities. And it doesn't stop there. Societal norms like Eurocentric beauty standards, for example, plant the idea that straight hair is more professional, while textured hair is somehow more unruly. Even more so, a comment like, "Is your hair even real?" isn't just an offhand question, but it's the result of years of negative messages being built up that instill the idea that certain looks are normal while others aren't. Whether my hair is real or not, first of all, is none of your business. And second of all, do people just think I don't have hair? I mean, come on, I've got luscious blonde locks like Rapunzel hiding under all this. Can't you see? On a real note, society is watering the roots of these weeds through media and cultural norms. Consider how long it took for there to not be a lack of diverse representation in films and TV. And even when minority groups finally began to be depicted in media, they were depicted in stereotypical ways, reinforcing the biases that people carry into their real-world interactions. Suddenly, a comment like, "You're not like other Black people," makes sense to the person saying it, because they've been conditioned to believe that there's a monolithic way to be Black. Spoiler alert, there isn't. Now that you've seen what these needles are injecting, let's magnify what we're seeing so you can truly understand the sting. Not all shots are going to continue to hurt after you've gotten them, but some will. For those on the receiving end, microaggressions represent more than just a simple comment. Research has shown that these interactions have a cumulative effect on mental health, creating a type of stress that mirrors the impact of overt discrimination. According to a 2020 study in Perspectives on Psychological Sciences, repeated exposure to microaggressions highly contributed to heightened feelings of anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation. Because again, unlike direct racism or acts of prejudice, these occur in everyday interactions, which makes them harder to identify, harder to explain, and harder to escape. It forces individuals to continuously question whether they should conform to or ignore the issue, which is a significant mental strain. The workplace is a key example of this. A 2021 study in the Journal of Counseling Psychology found that individuals subject to microaggressions at work were more likely to feel excluded and undervalued, leading to lower job satisfaction and higher turnover rates. These feelings were perpetuated even in spaces that claim to value diversity. And it doesn't just stop at mental health. I mean, a student or lower class worker or minority constantly being praised for being so articulate may start to question whether their intelligence is being measured against a lower standard. These messages, though subtle, send a clear signal to someone. You are different, and you don't belong. Microaggressions slowly chip away at a person's confidence and force individuals to conform or withdraw from the insults. And these effects, though they may not always be visible, are deeply felt, and they matter. Because this isn't just an abstract problem, but an unseen reality for so many people. And it's time we start seeing it for what it truly is. Now that you've seen what these needles are injecting, and you're starting to understand the sting, let's figure out the best way to reduce the pain. If you're the one administering the shot, aka the person with microaggressive tendencies, it's easy to get carried away with what you're saying and not realize the harm behind it. We all have biases that we don't recognize at first. That's what makes people human. But the key is being open to growth and listening when others call us out. Acknowledge the mistake, don't make excuses, and take responsibility to do better next time. Now, if you're the one with the needle in you, the best way in reducing the pain is recognizing the sting. If someone says or does something that upsets you, or it's something that you have to contemplate, that means it was harmful. You should be able to voice when a shot hurts too much. It's exhausting to always have to be the one to educate. I know. But remember that you deserve respect. It's not about being confrontational. It's about being sure that you're seen and heard, and that people understand how their actions are affecting you. There's a common saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I always found that saying to be incredibly flawed, because words certainly can and will hurt you. But in a deeper sense, those words will never hurt you the more you try to stand